Hello and welcome into the final episode of Hot Hoops of the Year. I'm Sierra Goodwill, and joining me today is Maury Hirsch-Gordon. Maury, the fact that we're still talking about basketball in the last week of March means it's been a pretty exciting year for Quinnipiac Hoops. And even though the men's basketball team didn't play in any national tournament, it had some March Madness of its own. On Monday, Baker Dunleavy was named as the new head coach of the program. Dunleavy is coming to Hamden from Villanova, where he was associate head coach for 4 years, including during the Wildcats' run to the national championship last season. Chris Stacy has more on Dunleavy.
Quinnipiac Athletics announced the new head coach of the men's basketball team about a month after the firing of Tom Moore.
I'm confident that with his announcements, men's basketball is also going to make March a very exciting month here at Quinnipiac in the years ahead.
And it was right here where Greg Amodio introduced Baker Dunleavy as the next Quinnipiac men's head basketball coach.
We achieve greatness because we have exceptional leadership and culture in these programs. And now it is time to set our sights in taking men's basketball to the next level.
And, after our weeks of talks, as Greg mentioned, it was very clear to me that there is a foundation in place at this school that shares a lot of what I believe.
And the current players were optimistic about the coaching change.
I mean, that's big time. He's coming from a big program that's winning, so I think that could pay dividends to Quinnipiac.
It was a relief, to get to see who's going to be the new leader. And, I think the things that he was talking about, it could like translate and it could be good for us.
Dunleavy, who was the associate head coach at Villanova prior to taking the Quinnipiac job, now faces the challenge of keeping the current players.
I mean, obviously there's a sense of urgency to want everybody to stay. And I said that to the guys in the locker room. I hope over the next few days and weeks, they'll feel comfortable enough with me that they want to stay. First and foremost, these next days and weeks are going to be about me building a relationship with those guys, building a trust.
But no matter what, Dunleavy has a tough road ahead as he has to try to take over a team that went 10-21 last season. Reporting for Q30 Sports, I'm Chris Stacy.
Maury, clearly Dunleavy experienced a lot of success at Villanova, but what do you think he can bring here to Quinnipiac?
Well, I think he's going to bring a lot to Quinnipiac. I think, first of all, it was a great hire for Quinnipiac. It's, one of the top associate head coaches in the business. Won 129 games with Villanova, the most in that 4-year span with the Wildcats. Only 17 losses against that. So I think Dunleavy, will bring a lot. Specifically, I look at 3 different categories. I like his phenomenal pedigree that he brings. His dad, Mike Dunleavy Sr., 1999 NBA Coach of the Year, 20-year career in the NBA as a skipper, now at Tulane in college. Mike Dunleavy Jr., his brother, 15 years of NBA experience, top pick out of Duke University where he won a national championship with the Blue Devils. He's in his 15th year with the Atlanta Hawks after, a long journeyed career. And, his experiences with Jay Wright. I mean, Jay Wright's a national champion. Jay Wright started his coaching career at Hofstra, which is a mid-major school. So Jay Wright, his dad, his brother, even his youngest brother is an NBA agent. All have, a lot of basketball knowledge, and they, I'm sure, will help Baker with the transition. You also look at the fresh faces he will bring in. An assistant coach from Yale, Anthony Gones, Tom Pecora, from Hofstra and Fordham, a former Division I head coach. And then you also look at his third assistant coach in Sean Morris, the associate head coach from BU. Those are all players, all coaches, that come from similar institutions like Quinnipiac, good academic institutions. I've all been to the NCAA tournament and/or their respective conference championships. And also he brings that winning mentality. Like I said, 129 wins speaks for itself. Greg Amodio called him a winner, and I think Baker Dunleavy is going to have a very bright future here in Hamden.
Maury, you had the chance to talk to Josh Verlin over the phone after Dunleavy was hired. He's the owner and editor of City of Basketball Love, a site that covers high school and college ball in the Philadelphia area. So he got to cover Dunleavy during his time at Villanova and was able to give some insight into the culture that he's going to implement here at Quinnipiac. So let's take a listen to that.
I'm now joined alongside Josh Verlin of cityofbasketballlove.com. Josh is the owner and editor, covers all the premier high school and college basketball in the Philadelphia area. Josh, thanks for giving us a little bit of your time.
Yeah, of course, Maury. Thanks so much for having me on.
Josh, what's the initial reaction in Philadelphia about Dunleavy, leaving and pursuing his first head coaching job?
I mean, really, down here in Philadelphia, it was only a matter of time before Dunleavy ended up taking a head coaching position somewhere. I mean, he'd been associate head coach at Villanova the last 4 years. During the premier program in the area's most successful four-year run in its history. I mean, Villanova won 129 games over these last 4 years, obviously won the national title last year, and you can certainly say it helps having players like Josh Hart and Ryan Arcidiacono, but those in the program will tell you Baker had just as much to do with that success. Really hard worker, someone who came out of the Villanova program, played there in that first run from 02 to 06 that saw them go to the Elite Eight, then comes back as a director of basketball operations, gets promoted to an assistant coach, takes over as associate head coach, the number 2 guy under Jay Wright, and like I said, just a matter of time before he went and got a program of his own.
Josh, what are Baker's strengths and what will he bring to the Quinnipiac basketball program?
I mean, I think his strengths are that he's good at everything, ultimately. I mean, he was someone who, Villanova utilized as a recruiter. He would go out and recruit, and obviously they brought in some tremendous recruits over the last few years that the whole staff was responsible for bringing in. But, some schools will hide 1 or 2 coaches, keep them off the road, but Baker can recruit. He can coach. I know he was responsible for a lot of their skill development with the guards and the bigs. He'd be working with them in practice. He's great from a leadership mentality standpoint. He's someone who played Division I basketball, and more importantly, he comes from this Villanova program that has a different mentality than most of the programs in Division I basketball. I'm not going to say they're unique, but they certainly have their very specific mindset, and they're exceptionally good at making all of their players buy into that. And I think that'll be his biggest strength coming to Quinnipiac. Is his knowledge of coming from a program that had such a tremendous buy-in and now getting Quinnipiac to have that sort of same level of commitment.
That was great insight into the kind of culture and leadership style that Dunleavy brings. You can find the full version of that interview on our website at Q30television.com. But Maury, it's no secret that the men's basketball program definitely needs some work. So what should be his first priority as head coach here in Hamden?
Well, he's going to have a lot of them, but if you look at it, I think it's really about getting his message across. And I was reading an article today on Villanova and the national championship game last year, because we are approaching that 1-year anniversary with that epic game between North Carolina and Villanova in last year's national championship game. And in the timeout, after Marcus Page hit that wild 3-pointer to tie the game with 4 whatever seconds were left on the clock, Villanova was saying the word attitude. How were they going to respond? They had the last possession. The ball was in their hands. They controlled their own destiny. I think that's the biggest takeaway that when you look at Baker Dunleavy coming to Quinnipiac. How will this team respond to the word attitude? Because we know sometimes that this team can get derailed. We know, this team has a bunch of cast of characters, and that can help them at times. They are buoyant. They can bounce back from different scenarios. But the word attitude, when things get down and things are tough, how will his players respond? You win in college basketball with great culture. I've said it all along in my 4 years here. You win not with the 5 best players. You win with the best 5. And if he can create that culture at Quinnipiac, I think there's going to be a lot of success for years to come.
And it's tough to turn a program around in just 1 year who hasn't had a winning culture for many years now. So what are your expectations from Dunleavy and the Bobcats in the 2017-2018 season?
Well, before we get into numbers and get into records, you can't ever put success on how far a team gets in the MAC tournament, or 10 wins is a success in your first year because you're back to where you were last year if you potentially lose some of these players that are rumored to go. So I think it's really just the expectations are play a brand of basketball that people respect. That's how people will fill that beautiful Lender Court TD Bank Sports Center arena night in and night out. And I think with the things that Baker Dunleavy implements, it will take some time, but come March, like we've seen, the Manhattan Jaspers, the Iona Gales, other teams who have won the recent Metro Atlantic Athletic Conference championships, as long as you're playing your best ball come March and you have a brand and an identity that people can see about your basketball program, I think that will translate into success. So, I'm not going to sit here and say 10 wins, 15 wins is a good season for next year, but as long as they establish a brand, have an identity, and are playing their best basketball come into March, I think that'll be a good start.
Well, we will definitely see, but yesterday, President John Leahy and Athletic Director Greg Amodio introduced Dunleavy at his first ever press conference at the Helm in Hamden, so let's see what they had to say.
And now it is time to set our sights in taking men's basketball to the next level. As we moved through the search, we kept coming back to one individual who exemplified the traits necessary to realize our aspirational goals. And that individual was Baker Dunleavy. Someone who was described as thoughtful, calculated, a great recruiter, a passionate educator, a fierce competitor, a leader of men, and a winner. Ladies and gentlemen, at this time, I am pleased and excited to introduce to you the next men's basketball coach of the Bobcat program, Baker Dunleavy.
I just met with the players, and I also expressed to them my gratitude. You know, sometimes in the age of Twitter and social media, these coaching searches can be tough. They can really take their toll on everybody involved, especially the players. And that does not get lost on myself and my staff. So we're very sensitive to that. We're appreciative to how they've waited, they've been patient, and we cannot wait to get to work with them.
You know, it went well. You know, it was a relief, you know, to get to see who's going to be the new leader. And, you know, I think the things that he was talking about, you know, it could like translate and it could be good for us, you know, going forward.
I'm really about changing the culture and just building a culture and a winning culture for sure.
Committed to doing things the right way, having an honest guy, working hard, and if anything, just be honest with him, and he's open to anything and to listen and to learn as we all go along. So we all feel really excited about him being here.
I'm excited, you know, I'm excited for what, you know, he's known, like he knows about guards, so that's a good thing in the style of play, but, you know, we'll just see in the future what happens.
It definitely gets me excited to know that he's coached a bunch of NBA players and great players in the past, and his dad has great connections to the NBA and just has a lot of pro connections, so that's a great thing.
There are many reasons as to why Baker Dunleavy was hired as head coach, but one reason in particular that is buzzing around campus is his connection to the Big East Conference. The field hockey team has already made that jump into the Big East. So, Maury, do you think this was a major factor into his hiring, and is it a feasible goal for Quinnipiac to move into that conference?
I think it was a key part in the hire. I don't think it was all of it, but I think that's that added bonus where it's like, okay, you're getting a coach from a conference that you're trying to get into. Yes, field hockey's in the Big East. Yes, the administration at Quinnipiac hope to get into the Big East Conference. I'm not saying that they will get into the Big East Conference, but you know, a ton of people on social media have taken it, you know, and have shown to me, you know, that they don't believe that Quinnipiac is Big East ready, and they are not Big East ready right now. Quinnipiac will be the first to tell you that. But when you look at the facilities Quinnipiac has, and you know, the retractable roof that the TD Bank Sports Center has, you take that off and you double the arena size. You have the availability of the Webster Bank Arena in Bridgeport to play basketball games there, with the new addition of the field hockey fields, the lacrosse fields, other fields, and other playing surfaces on main campus. You look at all that, and then you add the success in, and if men's basketball can win, you know, 1 or 2 MAC championships with the success that women's basketball has had and other programs around this campus, I don't think it's too far-fetched. That's definitely John Leahy's goal. He said it when he came in. He wanted to get Quinnipiac to the Big East. He wanted to get them to Division I. He did that. He got them, you know, into the MAC, into a mid-major conference, and now he wants to move up the ladder. And why should you ever, you know, harp on someone's dreams?
Well, I'm not one to harp, so the hiring isn't the only big news surrounding the men's basketball team. It might also be losing some of its leading scorers. Stick with us here on Hot Hoops to learn who might be trading in their Quinnipiac uniform.
Coming up on hashtag that. We are your source for Quinnipiac's entertainment news. All this and more.
Coming up on the Q30 Newscast. Hello, Quinnipiac hockey fans, and welcome to the Neutral Zone.
Definitely St. Lawrence, and I think you're going to see the test coming up real soon.
It might be
having a bit of an adjustment issue without that CBS line, but don't count them out.
At High Point Solutions Arena in Game 2 of Quinnipiac vs. Northeastern Series.
It's 9:30 Eastern, and you know what that means. Sports Pause is on the air.
Ball played up the middle. Emmanuel with a little cheat off the puck. Preseason just boils down to going after another national championship and not necessarily focusing on the one before.
MJ, it is time for our favorite part of the show. It's the top 5 plays of the week, brought to you by B&D Deli, home of the Q-Dog.
Let's talk about the first play you want to break down.
Yeah, let's break it down right away.
But the one name I'm going to throw out there is a freshman, Mika Maples.
Welcome back to Hot Hoops on Monday. Just hours after Dunleavy was announced as the next head coach, a few players were quick to show their discontent. Dylan Fearon was the first to report that freshman stars Mikey Dixon and Peter Kiss submitted their request to be released from Quinnipiac. Maury, this is big news. What will happen to this program if those two players leave?
Well, it would definitely be a transition year, and it would definitely be a rebuilding year. I think we can all acknowledge that. You look at the stats right there. You look at all the accolades that Dixon and Kiss won this year. I think it's undeniable that the amount of talent that would leave Hamden, would be irreplaceable for this incoming year. It's tough. It's close to April. Recruiting season is almost done. That doesn't mean you can't get players to come to Quinnipiac, but the talent and the value of the players that you can get right now just isn't as high as if Dunleavy was brought in maybe the middle of the year or even before this year happened. But the biggest thing that I'm looking forward to next year, if they leave, is the core. How does Dunleavy treat the core coming back? Andrew and Aaron Robinson, Alan Chiga, Abdullah Bundu, Shays Daniels. How will the Robinsons, maybe they get the starting nod? How will they respond, to playing more minutes, to Dunleavy style? I think Dunleavy will have these players buy in. I think definitely the Robinsons and definitely Alan Chiga will buy in, as well as Abdullah Bundu and Shays Daniels. And I think with that core, I think he'll have a lot of time to work with them throughout the summer ball if these two players do leave, and he might have some time, to grab a couple fifth years or maybe some junior college transfers.
Well, it is not a done deal yet. Dunleavy did talk to the team. Kiss and Dixon were both there. Then he was going to talk to them individually, I heard. So if these players do choose to stay, which they still could, how do you think that would influence the program and the mindset of the team?
Well, they'd be able to compete for a MAC championship right away. You inherit a coach that's a tremendous up-and-coming coach with some new faces and some great ideas. You return the best backcourt, in my opinion, in the Metro Atlantic Athletic Conference as far as raw talent goes. You have a whole summer with them. Mikey Dixon, Peter Kiss put some weight on their frame. Mikey Dixon is maybe 150 soaking wet. So, he gets up into that 170, 175 range. Kiss puts some muscle on his frame. I really think this team has a chance to compete. And also, Sierra, if they stay, I've heard a lot of rumors right now, and it's still really, really early, but a lot of rumors saying, some really good fifth-year players, whether it's from this region or outside the region, will have Quinnipiac on their list if and only if Dixon and Kiss decide to stay, because they want to play with good guards and they want to play for an up-and-coming coach. So if they stay, there might be some people might open their eyes, with the type of talent that could come to Hamden.
Clearly, those two have a ton of potential, and if they do choose to transfer, where do you think are some reasonable locations that they could find their new homes at?
Well, I would never want to put pressure on any type of student athlete where he or she would want to go, and force them into going somewhere in particular. But you look on Twitter last night, Peter Kiss's name is floating around the St. John's Red Storm. That's the Big East. I've heard from sources that say, teams from the Big 12, teams from the AAC, are contacting Kiss and Dixon. Even teams, in the A10 are as well. I think a good conference, that maybe Dixon and Kiss can land in, would be the aforementioned ones that I just said, as well as the Mountain West. I think a place like a San Diego State with a Steve Fisher, that's had a ton of success at Michigan back in the day with the Fab Five, a really defensive-oriented team. Peter Kiss can lock up. He's got great court vision. So I think, them, going across country playing for maybe a San Diego State type of team, schematically I'm talking, not the specific school or the specific style of play that they play, but schematically with the right coach, I think they have a bright future, to move up, into a league higher than the Metro Atlantic Athletic Conference.
Well, Dixon and Kiss weren't the only players on the team causing some buzz. Jaden Daly of Daily Dose of Hoops reported on Monday that Shays Daniels has also submitted his request to be released from the university. And if this was true, the senior quickly took to Twitter and social media to express that he changed his mind. He tweeted this picture that said, "I put on for that name across my chest," and then got a laugh at people who said I was transferring, making it pretty clear that he will be in blue and gold most likely for the next season. Well, when we come back, I'm swapping Maury out for Brian Schwartz to talk a little bit about the women's basketball's run in the NCAA tournament. You won't want to go away.
It's 9:30 Eastern, and you know what that means. Sports Pause is on the air.
Ball played up the middle. Iman Whalen with a little cheat off the pipe. Preseason just boils down to going after another national championship and not necessarily focusing on the one before.
MJ, it is time for our favorite part of the show. It's the top 5 plays of the week, brought to you by B&D Deli, home of the Q-Dog.
Let's talk about the first play you want to break down.
Yeah, let's break it down right away.
But the one name I'm going to throw out there is a freshman, Mika Maples.
Hello, Quinnipiac hockey fans, and welcome to the Neutral Zone.
Definitely St. Lawrence, and I think you're going to see the test coming up real soon.
They might be having a bit of an adjustment issue without that CBS line, but don't count them out.
At High Point Solutions Arena in Game 2 of Quinnipiac vs. Northeastern Series.
All this and more.
Coming up on the Q30 Newscast.
Coming up, coming up, coming up.
Coming up on hashtag that.
We are your source for Quinnipiac's entertainment news.
Welcome back to Hot Hoops. I'm now joined alongside Brian Schwartz. Brian, how are you?
Doing well.
So after beating Marquette and Miami to advance to the Sweet 16, the women's basketball team was faced with a very tall task, literally the South Carolina Gamecocks and their 6'5" forward, Asia Wilson. The Gamecocks were a #1 seed in the tournament and ranked top 7 in the country all year long. Brian, did the Bobcats ever stand a chance against the Gamecocks?
You said it yourself. It was a very tall team, and Quinnipiac just had no one to play against them. Kayla Davis, Asia Wilson, and Alicia Gray all dominated in this game, and Quinnipiac got off to such a slow start. It was 16-0 with 2:15 to go in the first quarter. There's no coming back from that. If you start off that cold, there's just no way you're going to be able to come back from that, especially against such a good program like South Carolina. Yeah, I talked about before, they're no UConn, but they're still a #1 seed in women's basketball, and Quinnipiac is still a mid-major seed, still a number 12. So, no, after that slow start, there was really no coming back.
Yeah, maybe if one of those shots in the first quarter, Paula took a couple from 3, maybe if one of those falls, it alters the mindset going forward in the game, but none of them fell, so I agree with you. Was not coming back from a 16-0 start. Clearly the most successful season in program history anyways for the women's basketball team. One thing this team really prided itself on is playing team ball, so unselfish, and really anyone could go off on any given night. But if you had to choose just one MVP of the season, who would it be?
I think it's got to be the leader of the whole team, the one that really propelled everyone throughout the postseason run, and that's Adelie Martucci, the fifth-year senior. She played outstanding, and through the whole stretch run, she was the heart and soul of the team. She, like you see there, 10.4 points per game, led the team in minutes played, team-high 60 steals. She was all over the place. She would always be guarding the best player on every team. We saw she stopped Marina Lizarazu in the game against Iona. She did everything possible for Quinnipiac to really propel them to those wins in the tournament.
Martucci's voice in the huddle will definitely be missed. There might not be much of a debate when it comes to this next question, Brian, but if you had to give the team an overall grade on the season, what would it be and why?
A++++, and go on and on and on. No one thought this team was going to the Sweet 16. No one knew if they would win the MAC championship. Yeah, they were expected to, but they didn't win it last year. They were able to beat Canisius, they beat Iona, and they beat Rider, and that was all pretty easy. But then you get into the NCAA tournament, and you have to play two top teams in Marquette and Miami, and they played well. They played like they were big-time conference teams. So yeah, it was a successful season and a very successful one at that.
Absolutely. And now we're going to bring in Josh Silverman, our other women's basketball beat reporter, to give postseason report cards for the key players on this team.
Thank you, Sierra. I'm joined here with the touchscreen. The grade's already up. But going to break down a couple players, starting with Jen Fay. I was tweeting it during the South Carolina game, #FeedJenFay. That's what the Bobcats need to do the next 2 years. She's a redshirt sophomore, of course. I'm going to give her an A for the season because she had 41 points in the 3 tournament games. She was the leading scorer or tied for it in 2 of the games. She just did a great job in the tournament. She was one of the few players I thought could have played with South Carolina. They would play them multiple times, and like you said, Asia Wilson was just a different animal that the Bobcats haven't seen. But I'm giving Jen Fay an A for the season. Next is Morgan Mann. Sorry, having a little technical difficulties. Morgan, she had 24 points in the 3 tournament games. The reason she's getting an A- is because she, even though the Miami game was such a great performance by her, she went 6 for 8 from behind the arc. The other 2 games, she only went 1 for 3, and when you're a 3-point shooter and that's really what you do, you have to do it every game in order to get an A or an A+. Obviously, everyone's getting an A because they made the Sweet 16, as Brian said, A+++. They did a great job. I got it this time. Ali Martucci, A+. Look at that photo. Her on-ball defense, especially against Iona, that defense against Marina Liz-Ross was the best. Translated into the NCAA tournament, which I thought was really impressive. And she just did a great job. Although of the 5 players on this list, she had the least amount of points, it didn't really matter. She hit the shots when she needed to, especially in the Marquette and the Miami games. And her defense and her leadership is unmatched. Shane Dennehy brought it up last night on Bobcat Breakdown. We were talking last year about how was this team going to replace Marina Napolitano. Now the question is, how is the team going to replace Ali Martucci? Because she went above and beyond what I think Marina Napolitano did. Moving on, Erin McClure, she gets an A. And the reason she really gets an A is I know this is only for the NCAA tournament, but it should be for the whole postseason. Her 20 points, one of the best performances in a Bobcat uniform that I've seen against Rider in the MAC tournament, is the reason that they were even able to get here. She did a great job. She gets the A in my book. And lastly is Paula Stroutmanet. Sarah mentioned it. If one of her shots fell, she took 2 open threes in the beginning of the game against South Carolina. If one of them were to fall, or even both, you're not looking at 16-0. You're maybe looking at 10-3, and that's just a huge difference when you're playing South Carolina. You can't get behind 16-0. And so she gets the A-. She had a great tournament after not having a great MAC tournament. She had over 30 points in the NCAA tournament, so she did have a great tournament, but she's the one getting the A- Back to you guys at the desk.
Thanks so much, Josh. Well, all A's from Josh over there for all the players. Do you agree?
Yeah, I can't disagree with that. They made it to the Sweet 16. Everyone deserves an A. Like I said, A++++. Keep going on and on. Everyone deserves an A. From the head coach to the last person on the bench, everyone deserves it.
I was going to say, we got to mention Trisha Fabry and Mountain McGilvery, really the key 2 at the top that made this all possible for the team. What do you think? There's 2 players missing from this team, obviously, Morgan Manns and Adelie Martucci. Adelie's leadership will definitely be missed, but the future's still bright. What are your expectations for next year's season?
Well, the future should be bright for this team because they do have Jen Fay coming back. They have Carly Fabry, Dell Thornton, Paula Stroutmanet, Erin McClure, and you keep going on and on. This team is so deep that they have another chance to make this kind of run. Someone's just got to step up like Adelie Martucci did as the premier defender and the premier heart and soul of the team. Someone's got to step up to be that spot, but they definitely have the talent to make it.
Yeah, and the poise and the confidence that they played with in the NCAA tournament against teams in the Power 5 conferences was so impressive to me and really makes it seem like they could be back there next season. So we'll have to see. But this concludes Hot Hoops for the 2016-17 season. Thank you for following us all season long. To stay up to date on Quinnipiac basketball news, be sure to still follow us on Twitter at Q30 Sports and check out our website at Q30television.com for the latest news on Mikey Dixon and Peter Kiss, as well as any other basketball updates. For Maury Hirsch-Gordon, Brian Schwartz, executive producer Chris Stacey, and everyone else behind the scenes, I'm Sierra Goodwill. We'll see you next time.